When I first saw the title, I thought this was a Transformers movie. Then I realized I'm thinking of the death of Unicron. Hello everybody and welcome back to the Horror Movie Syllabus. My name is Professor Victor and I'll be your host as we go through all of the essential, noteworthy, interesting, and notorious modern horror films. If you're new to the channel, I recommend you check out the introduction video. There's a link to it in the description below, and it's going to give you a pretty good sense of what we do here at the Horror Movie Syllabus, which is we usually look at a particular subgenre of horror, and then we pick 3 movies from that subgenre to explore. But this is our Is It Syllabus-Worthy series. This is where I take a recommendation from you guys, something that you've suggested in the comments to one of my videos, some horror movie that I've never seen before, and I check it out for the first time, and then I let you know, is it syllabus-worthy? Did it have something about it that makes me want to put it on the Horror Movie Syllabus? And if for some reason you haven't seen the thumbnail or the title of this video, the movie that we're talking about today is Death of a Unicorn. And Death of the Unicorn was recommended to us by Demon One Kvelt. I'm not sure I'm getting that name right, that screen name right, and I'm sorry if I'm butchering it, but they gave us this recommendation in our video for another Is It Syllabus-Worthy video, the Eli video, where we talked about the movie Eli, and all they said about this was that it was well worth my time. That was it. And I love that. I love when they don't give away too much in their comment about the movie, because I like to go in as blind as possible. Now, that said, this movie came out a couple months ago, and I did see the trailer for it, so I knew that it was an A24 movie, and I knew that it starred Jenna Ortega and Paul Rudd and had a pretty good cast, and that it seemed like it had a bit of a horror comedy vibe to it, and that it didn't really appealed to me from the trailer. It didn't look great. It didn't look horrible, just didn't look great. And there was a lot of good horror stuff coming out at the time, so I never saw it in the theater. And then I never managed to circle around and get back to it. I did kind of mean to see it, because I'm trying to see more horror in the theater for you guys, but I never got around to this one. I just missed it. And then I didn't feel strongly enough about it to go and seek it out until I got this comment. So I put it here on the syllabus to talk about on the Is It Syllabus-Worthy series, and this is the information I had to it. I went into it with that and on that only. And did I love it? Did I hate it? Let's find out. Like I said, the movie that we're looking at today is Death of a Unicorn. Death of a Unicorn came out in 2025, not that long ago, and was written and directed by Alex Sharfman. And I'm not familiar with Alex Sharfman, and maybe that's because this is their feature directorial debut. And they have A24 giving it a wide release, and they've got a cast of mostly A-list actors in it, and that's a pretty impressive thing to be getting from a first-time writer-director, or at least a first-time director, and I'm kind of curious as to how they managed to pull that off, and I guess that's what we're going to talk about in just a second. First, if you haven't seen it before, the movie starts with Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega as a father-daughter duo, and Paul Rudd's going to a business meeting with his daughter in tow, and they hit a unicorn on the way there, and they take it with them, and they think it's dead, but it's not, and it turns out that the unicorn's blood and other body parts have magical healing powers. And once the business partners of Paul Rudd realize this, and they're very greedy, rich people, they want to figure out a way to market this and make money off of it and exploit it. And I'll go ahead and stop there so as not spoil the movie for anybody. But it's an obvious premise with a very interesting, fresh concept behind it. And so it's a weird mix of both, like, kind of stale or obvious tropes, but also a fresh idea. And that's intriguing at the very minimum. This interesting concept does work for me. The idea of this unicorn that just is in our real world and is kind of mysteriously, never discovered before, and just kind of gets accidentally discovered when they hit it with their car, and then the magical powers that its body can imbue is an interesting concept. It feels like a fresh idea, even if it is being dropped into this kind of social satire about classism and the rich, and then their unscrupulous behavior. So it's kind of taking a well-worn trope and injecting some sort of fresh angle into it. And I'm here for that. That's not a bad thing. I think that the movie starts up with a pretty solid premise because of that. But then it kind of gets bogged down in this social satire. The satire is, like I said, a little bit obvious. It's a little bit worn and tired, to be honest with you. The making fun of rich people who are unscrupulous and want to exploit everybody to make a buck is it's been done a lot. And the idea of putting the unicorn aspect into this to try to inject some new life into it is a good idea. It's the right instinct, but it takes a little while to get there, and that kind of affects the pacing of the movie. But we're going to come back to the pacing in a bit. What the movie does have going for it right off the bat is a really strong cast. It's got a bunch of likable actors in it, and that helps give it some goodwill. It really you are you like these people that are in the movie, and so you're willing to give it some time to find its footing or find its rhythm, or at least I did. And then that, I think, is to the movie's benefit quite a bit. I think it's necessary, frankly. Our lead here is Jenna Ortega, who has an effortless, affable charm to her that even when she's being prickly and kind of, acerbic, which is kind of part of her shtick, it really helps to carry a movie, and it carries it here very, very well. We like her. We're behind her. And again, especially in this whole social satire thing, she's our protagonist and she's our avatar in the movie. We like her because she doesn't jive with these other characters. It's good. And then you've got Paul Rudd playing her dad, and everybody likes Paul Rudd, right? Although it's interesting that they have him being mostly unlikable in this movie, and I don't want to spoil things too much, but for a large part of the movie, he's kind of unlikable and his motivations are kind of suspect, and it's a weird thing to cast Paul Rudd in there, but I think it's important because you don't want him to be totally unlikable, because you want his character arc him and his daughter together to kind of go somewhere, and if you turn on him too early, I think you can't get to that place. And having Paul Rudd, again, a very likable actor that has a lot of innate charm himself, is a good way to kind of offset the unlikability early on. And you've got Richard E. Grant and you've got Téa Leoni as the rich people that Paul Rudd's doing business with. They have this big wealthy company and he's their lawyer, and they are very caricature, very stereotypical. They do perfectly fine work. They are good as kind of almost mustache twirly villains. They're kind of over the top, and it's on purpose because this is kind of a horror comedy. And you got Will Poulter playing their son, the spoiled rich brat, and he's also kind of caricature, but he really is, to me, the highlight of this movie outside of Jenna Ortega, because he is very funny. Now, I like Will Poulter. He tends to be a bit of a scene stealer for me. I like him in the things he does, and he does tend to steal scenes, and he is stealing scenes here. And he's doing a great job of it, because one of the issues is that much of the comedy in this movie wasn't really hitting for me. It kind of fell flat. Like, there's jokes, and they're obviously supposed to be jokes, and they're supposed to be funny, but again, to me, it feels a little tired, a little obvious, and so it wasn't really hitting for me very much. But Will Poulter, again, doing a caricature, an obvious bit, but his energy and his performance is bringing something to it where he was actually making me laugh. He was actually getting something out of me, even though, again, wasn't super fresh, wasn't super original, but he still got something out of me. So he really was kind of a big part of what was helping this movie work in the first half. And note that I said the first half of this movie, because that's where there is a little bit of an issue, is that this movie takes a while to get going. There's a lot of setup, and while they hit the unicorn pretty early in the movie, it's in the very first scene of the movie, then the movie downshifts. It slows down, and there's a lot of conversation with Paul Rudd trying to impress these people, and they want to know about his family and stuff like that, and Jenna Ortega's uncomfortable. It's really, again, kind of trite and kind of a slog to get through. And Paul Rudd's character has very strange motivations in this movie. Like I said, he's kind of unlikable through most of it, and why he cares about this stuff so much and why he's so dismissive of his daughter is strange and kind of annoying, and you just kind of have to roll with it. You have to kind of roll with it, that everybody here is kind of a little bit surreal almost, because they're playing it so big. It's kind of campy, and it's intentionally kind of campy, but it doesn't completely work in terms of being fun or funny. And again, I think it's because it's kind of obvious satire. It's kind of trite and well-worn. And that's part of the issue too, is you've got the first half of this where they're setting up the unicorn being discovered, and the rich people want to use it because they find out that it's got magical properties. It can heal people, basically. It heals Jenna Ortega's acne, and it heals Paul Rudd's eyesight, and so they realize they can maybe market this, and it's like the cure for cancer and everything else, and they're very, very excited about that. This is all fine stuff, but again, the comedy part doesn't work that well, and then you what you miss out on here is the opportunity to make a bit of a moral quandary, right? Because you've got this unicorn that has been killed, and its body can be used, its blood and its horn can be used to heal, and they want to exploit that and make money off of it. And Jenna Ortega is kind of against that, but what you really miss is the moral quandary of, it's very obvious in the movie. There's never a question that using the unicorn's body in this way is bad. It's very obvious because these other people are caricatures and they're clearly bad and unlikable, and they want to use the unicorn, and Jenna Ortega, we like her, and she doesn't want to use it. So it's very clear what side you're going to be on. And I think it would have been more interesting or more challenging if they had made it so that there was a moral quandary here, that using this unicorn could heal people and save the world and stops people from suffering. And they pay lip service to this, but because it's coming out of the mouth of people who really want to just get monetary gain out of it and they don't really have altruistic motives, it falls flat. If you really looked at the idea that this magical creature could have so many positive effects on humanity and made it a much more difficult decision that you had to wrestle with, I think that would have been a much more interesting experience, a watching experience for the viewer, and a much more challenging movie, and maybe would live up a little bit to what I expect from an A24 movie. Because this is the thing, you have some expectations from an A24 movie, and this movie didn't really fit the bill. It didn't from the trailer. I thought this is a weird looking movie for A24, and it was a little bit strange, and I think this would have been a way to make it feel a little bit more like an A24 flick, where it kind of presented something a little bit more challenging thematically. But I think that might have to do with having a novice director, writer. Again, I don't know how much he's written, but as a director, he's a novice. Maybe that hurts the movie a little bit, because I think in defter hands, maybe some of these themes would have come through, and maybe it wouldn't have felt quite so basic and obvious. There was nothing about it that felt tremendously challenging or problematic or deep. Honestly, it feels a little bit beneath A24 in the kind of quality and perspective and themes that you expect from that studio. And so it winds up being a little disappointing when you get mired in that for the first half of the movie. Like I said earlier, the pacing feels a little off because the movie goes on for about, half the runtime trying to get to the stuff we came for, which is unicorn attacks, right? Like that was the one thing in the trailer that was appealing to me, and seeing a fun monster movie, that's what I'm here for at this point. And A24, again, that's not usually what I think of when I think of A24, but I'm cool with that, right? About halfway through is when you start getting the unicorn attacks, and once that happens, the movie picks up exponentially. It becomes a lot more fun. The animal effects are pretty decent. They're not great, but they're good enough. Like honestly, they look like CGI horses most of the time because they are CGI horses most of the time, and there's not, it's not the most scintillating, amazing Marvel-esque special effects or whatever, or, Lord of the Rings style special effects, but they're perfectly fine because the action is fun. The gore is fun. Watching these unicorns attack these soldiers and private security people that they've got and stuff like that, and tearing them apart and impaling them on their horns and stuff like that. That's what you came for, and that's delivering, and that's when the movie gets fun. And not for nothing, but that's when the movie stops focusing so much on the tired satirical tropes and just becomes a fun monster movie, and you start to like the characters that are left a little bit more. So that's where the movie really starts to deliver on what its potential could have been, or at least some of its potential could have been, because it still, again, could have been a little bit more challenging, but at least it starts delivering the fun. The first half, a little bit of a slog. Second half, fun. But was it fun enough to make the syllabus? Let's find out. So, is Death of a Unicorn syllabus worthy? I say nay. Look, there's just not enough here to make it onto the syllabus. There's just not enough meat on the bone, to be honest with you. Like, this is not really quite what you expect from an A24 film. I said it before, and I'll say it again because it bears repeating. You have certain expectations from the studio in terms of quality and theme and production and everything, and this is just not it. It really isn't. It's got that satirical, angle, but there's no real edge or bite to the satire, right? The comedy falls flat. It doesn't really hit very much. And I'm going to hang that on the director. I am, because a novice director is probably not able to pull out what a seasoned director might be able to pull out from the actors and from the script, which again he wrote, that could elevate it and take it up a notch to make it work, even though it is, treading familiar ground. I think that a more deft hand, a more experienced director could have made it work more, especially with the A-list cast you've got here. Everybody here is good actor, but they're not all delivering their best performances. And again, I'm going to hang that more on the director and a little bit on the script too, because again, there's this missed opportunity to present something a little bit more challenging, to say a little bit more about death and the afterlife, because there's this whole theme there about death and about this, Danny Ortega's mom who's passed away, and they don't really explore much about it, and they just kind of throw it in at the end a little bit. And there was an opportunity to do a lot more with that and say something, if not profound, at least interesting. And they left that on the table. They just left it on the table. It's a missed opportunity. It's not like it was horrible or anything like that. It just that they could have done so much more and made it a little bit more worthy of an A24 label. And then they didn't. Is it worth my time? Yeah, sure. Like, I had a good enough time with it. I had some fun. That second half is a payoff. The actors are good. The ending I thought was pretty solid, and the unicorns are a blast, right? So I had a good time with it. Is it worth watching? Sure. But is it worth being on the syllabus? No, it's not. There's just not enough remarkable stuff about it to get it up there onto the syllabus, make it syllabus worthy. But it's not a bad time. I had fun with it. The first half of it, the first 40 minutes or so, is a little bit of a slog. But once you get through that, it really picks up quite a bit. So to me, it pulled it out in the end, but not enough to be on the syllabus. That's where I'm at. So that's my thoughts on Death of a Unicorn. It basically kind of delivered what I thought it was going to deliver. It was a little uneven. It was a little bit hard at first, a little bit good at the end. Not exactly disappointed that I didn't see it in the theaters. Perfectly fine for watching at home. So that's what I'd tell y'all to do, is check it out at home, see if you like it, and then let me know, of course, what you thought of it when you check it out, because I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on it as well. Am I being too hard on it? Let me know in the comments. And now I'm going to let you know what this Horror Trivial Pursuit card says. I've got my card here. I like to read one of these on camera and try to answer it and hopefully not embarrass myself. And since we're talking about these unicorns, and in this movie they were basically monsters, we're going to do the monster category on the card. Here's the question. In 1968's The Birds, what color is the iconic outfit protagonist Melanie Daniels wears while trapped in Bodega Bay? Pretty good question, actually. And I don't know Melanie Daniels, I don't know that name, but I do know Tippi Hedren is the lead character, and so that's who she must be playing. I don't remember the character name, but I definitely remember Tippi Hedren. And it's a really interesting thing to bring this question up, because while it's an older movie, it is in color. And if you're familiar with The Birds, this should be, I think it's pretty easy, right? Like, if you've seen just clips from The Birds, you've probably seen this iconic outfit that they're talking about. And so I think that this is an easy question, but maybe I'm wrong. If you haven't seen The Birds, this is going to be a shot in the dark, right? You're just going to be guessing a color on the rainbow. But I would think that if you haven't even seen The Birds, that you would at least have seen clips from it if you're a horror fan, because it's so famous, it's so well known. Now, we haven't talked about it on the channel because it's pre-1970, which we don't normally talk about, but it's possible that we might be doing an Alfred Hitchcock video in the future, and if we are doing that, then we're going to definitely be talking about The Birds, because it's an amazing movie. It's so well made. It's so clever. It's so well. It's iconic, really. And it's kind of been a bit of a pain to not include on the syllabus in the past because of this whole arbitrary 1970 cutoff that I did. And I cheated a few times, but I didn't cheat for The Birds. But I'm gonna be talking about The Birds in the future. Let me just put it out there. So I've prattled on long enough. Lock in an answer. You either know this because you're a fan, you've seen the movie, or you've seen clips at least, or you don't know and you're guessing. So just lock in a guess, because I'm about to tell you my guess that I'm 99% sure is right. Ready? Okay. The outfit's green. The outfit is green. It's bright green. It's very, very eye-catching and noteworthy and memorable. And the card says green. So I am right on this one. And yeah, it's again, it's an iconic movie. It's an iconic outfit. It's an iconic image. It's an iconic performance. So if you haven't seen The Birds, definitely check it out. If you haven't seen Death of a Unicorn, maybe check it out. It sounds like your kind of thing because it wound up being worth the ride. It just wasn't syllabus worthy. So thank you again to Demon One Kuvelt. I'm sorry if I'm not saying it right, but I appreciate the recommendation. And by all means, keep them coming, both you and everybody else. Recommend stuff to me. If I haven't seen it, maybe I'll make a video about it. But until then, I'm just going to say